need someone in time of grief, someone my cheer to be. Jesus I choose, for he gives relief, he is the best for me. Thus I choose my Savior always when.
Can you give us some information about our mission work in Tanzania, Africa, that we're going to be providing support for during the month of August? Wow. Folks, this is our 8th month of the year. This will be our 8th mission work. Any monies collected over budget go to those works. So far, over $53,000 over budget. You can smile if you want to. It's okay. You don't have to sit there like a knot's on a log. You know, be proud of yourself. Goodness gracious. That's a lot of money, isn't it? And now we've got the opportunity to continue to do that, don't we? And the work that the elders have selected is a work in Tanzania, Africa. The mission work is referred to as the Chamala Mission in Tanzania. Where in the world is Tanzania? There it is in yellow. It's on the continent of Africa, somewhat south and on the eastern shore. The capital of that particular city is Dodoma. Let's look at some facts about this place. Some of us might say, I don't really know much about Tanzania. Well, you want to know something? You probably know more than you think you do. There are 3 major sites that are there. Have you ever heard of the Serengeti? You ever watched Discovery? You've heard of Serengeti. Folks, it is one of the biggest wildlife preserves in all the world. It's huge. It is the place where all the big game is. Elephants, lions, water buffalo, rhinos. Boy, what I wouldn't give to go have a safari in the Serengeti, you know. Yeah, you can take up as much collection as you want. What a trip that'd be, wouldn't it? But there's another place that we often hear of, and it's called Zanzibar. Have you ever heard of that? It is a group of islands. That's what that little word there means. It looks like Greek. A group of islands just off the coast of Tanzania, and it belongs to Tanzania. And watch this last one, folks. Mount Kilimanjaro. Ever heard of that? Everybody's heard of Mount Kilimanjaro. It's a national park in Africa. It's located in Tanzania. It has the highest mountain in all of Africa, constantly snow-capped. 19,341 feet high. And yes, you can climb it if you've got 3 or 4 weeks. So see, we do know a little something about it, don't we? But let's get to know it just a little bit better. How many people are there? Folks, in that one little country, 59.73 million people. It's a lot of folks, isn't it? When you look at the peoples themselves, there are right around 120 different indigenous people to the area. We got northerners and southerners, don't we? 120 different kinds of people indigenous to Tanzania. It's amazing. The language, they've got all kinds of languages. There almost is a language for every one of those people. But the 2 dominant languages are Swahili and English. As far as the religious makeup is concerned, 1/3 are Muslim, 1/3 are, and we put it in quotation mark, Christians, and 1/3 are traditional as far as the Old African views of religion. Primary business, it's hard to imagine, is agriculture. But that's almost what every individual who is in that particular country does. There's also some manufacturing, and also there is the tourist industry. But agriculture is number one. The two main problems found in Tanzania, number one, poverty. And number two, corruption in government. It's huge. It's part of the reason for the poverty. And inside that nation, there is a mission that is referred to as the Chamala Mission. Wow. Let's talk about the Chamala Mission for just a few moments. The overseeing congregation is a church right here in the United States, the Del Reyta Church of Christ in Montgomery, Alabama. Can you imagine an eldership being over an entire mission work in Africa? That's a huge responsibility, folks. They've had that responsibility now for about 3 years. The location of Chamala. There's Tanzania again. It's located in the southern portion of Tanzania, right in the very middle of the south. It is an extremely rural area. It's about 450 miles from the east coast. Not much out there. The very first man who ever tried to go into Tanzania, as far as the member of the church is concerned, is a man by the name of Eldridge Eccles. It was in 1948. He petitioned the government to go in order that he might preach the gospel, and they said, no, can't come. It's almost like Atlantic Beach. They don't want you preaching the gospel here either. Make it hard to do. Eldridge Eccles came back to the United States and he talked to numerous congregations of the Lord's people, and several churches got together and they went out and they bought 2 farms in Tanzania. Guess what? They now were property owners in Tanzania. Now guess what they could do? They could send as many individuals into that country as they desired because they owned property. At the time, Tanzania was under the oversight of the British government. 1961 came along, folks. Tanzania received its independence from Britain. Interestingly enough, they came to the churches of Christ and they told them, unless you provide benevolence or some type of social service, you'll have to leave the nation. Now think about that. They've been there about a decade already. Now they're told they're going to have to leave. Folks, that was the impetus for the Chamala mission. The founders of that mission was a gospel preacher and his wife, Andrew and Claudette Connolly. They're no longer living. I remember when I was a young preacher, Brother Connolly came and he spoke at the Memphis School of Preaching. He was a big, tall man, big man. And boy, he could preach. Unbelievable. But he and his wife are responsible for that. At the time, the overseeing congregation was located in Arlington, Texas, a congregation by the name of Park Row. They went over and they started a hospital, and that hospital would serve 50 patients and also provided outpatient clinic. So there's the start of that little mission work. Folks, from 1965 to 1971, the Chamala Mission was responsible for establishing 120 congregations in Tanzania. You don't think they were working? 5,000 Christians were associated with those 120 congregations. Unbelievable, isn't it? A day school was also established right there on the property of the Chamala Mission. In addition to that, the missionaries, they went out into the various villages in Tanzania and started schools, and they were known as Church of Christ schools. I didn't put this in my notes, but I'll give it to you anyway. Everything sounds like it's going wonderful, doesn't it? The government issued a decree around 1965 or so, 1971, that said that all people living in villages need to do everything they possibly can to get away from the rural areas and move to the main roads. The bulk of the congregations in the villages died because those people moved away to obey what the government told them to do. Unreal, isn't it? But the mission continued, folks. Notice today, still in operation, the hospital, now with 130-bed capacity, includes what? Listen to it. An outpatient clinic, a male ward, a female ward, a children's ward, a maternity ward. They also offer a postnatal clinic, eye and dental care, an isolation ward, a family shelter, a morgue, storage and laundry facilities, a dispensary, housing for various missionaries who want to come and visit on site, and also for the mission workers who are there. Notice that last sentence. There have been as many as 60,000 patients, as well as 3,000 births take place in that mission in a year. Can you imagine? 60,000 people. In 2004, the Bear Valley Preacher Training School was contacted by the Chamala Mission, and they were asked if they would come and help to establish a training school, a preacher training school there in Chamala. It was originally called the Chamala Bible College. Later, it was changed to the Chamala Bible Institute. 2019, Brother Hal Ferguson became what is referred to as the stateside coordinator. He works closely with the Bear Valley College in Denver. It was Hal who came here and spoke to us about the Chamala Mission not long ago. That's his wife Mary. Hal and I grew up in the same congregation at the Knight Arnold Church of Christ. He graduated from the School of Preaching about 2 or 3 years after I graduated. He was a missionary there for a period of time. In that same year, another project was begun known as the Manna Project. 2 farms were purchased, and they began to develop those farms in order to make the Chamala Mission as self-sustaining as they possibly can. The Bible Institute was renamed to the Chamala School of Preaching in 2019. Notice this next statement. Besides the Chamala School of Preaching and the Chamala Mission Hospital, other works of the Chamala Mission include the Chamala Mission Primary School, with a teaching staff and an enrollment of 500 students. The Herring Christian Secondary School with a teaching staff and an enrollment of 130 students. And an entire estate of approximately 850 acres. Do you remember what I said a while ago about imagining that kind of a work under an eldership? Notice it takes some faith on the part of those men to take the reins of that and say, yes, we'll be willing to oversee this work. It's amazing, isn't it? Right now there are 8 people or families who work full time as far as just the Chamala mission is concerned. 5 of those men who occupy leadership positions are from the continent of Africa and from the country of Tanzania. Hadn't put a lot of pictures in. So I thought, you know what we need? We need some pictures, don't we? See there? Everybody likes pictures. Let's start with the hospital, folks. Here's one of the rooms of the hospital. Remember, 130 patients. I don't think that is a private room, do you? Yeah. 8, 10, 12, 14 people in a room. There's numerous buildings that have been built for different works. The women's ward, the men's ward, the maternity ward. Each one of those has different buildings that have been built over the course of the years. The School of Preaching, folks, the School of Preaching is almost identical to any school of preaching that you'll find in the United States of America. 2-year training schools, full-time for the students. The courses that they take are almost identical to the very courses that I took when I trained 40 years ago. Over the course of the years, and I couldn't leave this out, they developed them a good library. Every preacher training school needs a good library, and that is the first graduating class of the Chamala Bible College at the time. Notice now the pictures of the school. This is a picture of the primary school along with many of the children who are in that school. And yes, they are required to wear uniforms. And guess what else they do? They leave their homes and they make their residence on the property. You remember how many are there? 500 in one school, 130 in another school. Folks, that's a lot of children to have to maintain and feed, is it not? There's the picture of the secondary school and many of the children that are a part of that particular school. The individuals that you see now are many of the teachers of the schools that are there on the grounds. And oftentimes when missionaries go in, the husband or the wife will also go in and teach the class, and sometimes they'll teach classes like English to the kids. We may note that they have a farm now. Remember Manna Project? In fact, 2 farms. There's a picture of their farming and how they farm in rows. They build up high rows in order to plant their crops. There's a picture of many of their workers that come and help them on that farm. I'm told that in some weeks there can be as many as 1,000 volunteers that come through the Chamala mission. That's a lot of people coming in and out, isn't it? There's the pig farm. Remember, they're trying to become as self-supporting as they possibly can. Folks, you need fruits, you need vegetables, you need meat. And I don't know of anybody who doesn't like bacon. Do you? 2 pictures of the churches. This is the Chamala Church of Christ, located right there on the property. Remember all of those kids who are there? They don't go home on the weekends, folks. They stay there. So they are a huge part of the church. It's almost like having a captive audience, is it not, in order to preach and teach the gospel of Jesus Christ to. And when those kids do go home for the summer, guess what they can do? They can evangelize their parents and their grandparents and their other relatives, can't they? Now, not all the churches look like that. This one is a church from out in the village. About 30 or so individuals who are there, numerous young children who are there. So the villages still have quite a few preaching and teaching opportunities at Chamala. That's a picture of Nathan Ferguson and his family. Nathan is Hal's son, and they just moved to the Chamala mission. They've dedicated, I believe right now, 3 years of their lives, maybe more, to mission work, full-time at the Chamala mission. His wife's name is Christy. They have 3 children. Eden, who is 6, Emmy, who is 4, and then a newborn, Rowan. That picture there doesn't show it all. They have a big one on their website. I think there are about 11 suitcases that they loaded up to take their clothes over there. I'm sure he's got a few books in one of them. Got to have your books. I'd have 2 bags for clothes, 9 for books. But that's just me. But they've dedicated their time to going over there, folks, and working full time in that mission work. Young family.